everybody.
From beautiful Salt Lake City.
It's Thank God I Made Yes,
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And in case you hadn't guessed, filling in for Dan, it's Kate Birch.
Well, thanks so much for being here, Kate.
I've got physical, you guys are missing out. You're not seeing all the gestures that I'm doing.
Well, you have to do it. You have to get all the way into it. Oftentimes my arms are just it's Thank God I Made Yes.
I know, I have to gesticulate.
Yeah.
Such a gesticulator. I'm just big,
Dan's out of town, so Kate's filling in.
Yeah, gladly.
Sitting in for Dan. So thank you very much for,
I'm
for
always
being
happy.
here. Coming up on the show today, we're going to be talking about one of these horrible bills that seem to be passing at the state level across the country that are banning gender-affirming healthcare for transgender youth.
And we're just on the front lines of it. We're come on, God. Utah.
Yeah, so Utah, of course,
it's just representing.
And so we're going to be talking about that, getting into the thick of that, and
it's depressing.
Being a little depressed, a little outraged.
Yeah,
that's coming up on the second half of the show. First, we got some news from the week.
Yeah,
some stuff that happened that we want to talk about.
Hit me up.
West Virginia.
Oh, good stuff's always coming out of West Virginia.
How do you feel about West Virginia? They just their Senate just passed a bill that is going to require public schools to display "In God We Trust," our national slogan, in every building, every school building. And this comes from Republican Senator Mike Azinger.
Thanks, Mike.
He says he wants to give kids in school something to look up to and let them know it's okay to say God.
It's okay.
In school.
Oh, good.
Oh, cool. It's already okay, Mike. That's okay.
It's okay, kids.
He says, we know there's a lot of kids that have problems at home, tough times at home that we don't know anything about. Maybe they'll look up one day and say, "In God we trust." And know that they can put their hope in God.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what's going to happen for the kids.
So, they also could just look at their money. And
they're probably every license plate.
Yeah, exactly. The "In God We Trust" slogan definitely is emblazoned all over the place in this country.
Yeah, but we need it shoved down the kids' throats, too. What if they haven't noticed any of that yet?
And is this... Tell me, please, what role is it for the public schools to be informing kids anything to do with God?
Let's just keep the God word out of the schools. But
and
it's too bad it's the logo or the motto or whatever.
Yeah. He recognizes that kids have problems at home. Uh-huh. This is his solution.
Well, and he's like, we don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And we don't really want to look into it. So let's put this sign on the wall and then they'll look up to it and that'll fix everything.
Yeah. Not counseling. Mm-hmm. Right.
Just
school counselors maybe available. People who can talk to the kids about.
No. Let's spend our money on putting these words up in the school.
I mean, fortunately, the signs must be either donated or purchased from private donations.
Oh,
they can't use school funds. Thank God for that.
The God that I look up to on the school wall.
The law also includes requirements that it be the motto be placed framed or on a durable poster in a quote conspicuous place. Mm-hmm. The displays must contain images of the U.S. national and state flags.
Whoa.
And they cannot depict any other words, images, or information. Mm-hmm. So can it include an asterisk?
Well, at least there's not a Jesus picture next to it, or I guess it could be a little bit worse.
Oh, it can always be worse. Don't challenge them. They can come up with worse.
Yeah.
The history of this whole thing, the whole "In God We Trust," it was President Eisenhower who signed the law back in 1956, making the "In God We Trust" the official U.S. national motto, which is how the Supreme Court has defended it, staying on our money and all that kind of stuff.
And it's so funny because I think people, they think that that's from the 1700s. It's like, guys, this is very recent. And we don't need to keep that became the motto at all I would like to do a little bit of research and see if, like, at the time, were people having pushback about that?
About it becoming the motto?
Yeah, because we still had separation of church and state in the 50s. We
did, but there were also the commies.
Right.
And this was all part of making sure that America differentiated itself in every way from Russia. Right. So they were godless commies while we were God-fearing capitalists. So yeah.
Great. Good for us.
Oh, and he also, the sponsor of this, he adds this. Oh, God, this is so stupid. It was adopted during a time of disunity in America, at a time that unity was needed. And I think that's where we are in America in many ways. So he in God we trust. That's going to solve all of our problems, since what we probably aren't unified on, or at least one of the things is
if we could
all
God. I mean, I'm sure they truly believe, like, if we could all just believe in God. Yeah, guys, guess what? We're not going to. So no, this is not going to help anything.
Or if we could all just go back to the 1950s.
That really is that the 1950s were like, yes, their ideal of the good old days.
Oh, they were it was the best time.
Women in dresses,
to be white
cooking
in America,
and vacuuming.
To be a white man.
Yeah.
A white heterosexual man in America.
It was the best. I mean, it probably was. Pretty good for them.
For that specific group of people.
Yeah.
Upper middle class.
Yeah.
That was the best.
Yep.
But that's not.
But no.
That's not right.
Let's maybe include some other people in the best for the future, if possible.
Correct.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Okay. So this story is funny because I feel like it sort of would have this fun cognitive dissonance brain scramble thing that would happen to evangelicals if they read it. Uh-huh. It's all about U.S. Hispanic the population and their relationship to their churches. Oh, so there was Billy Graham sponsored this evangelical research firm called Lifeway to do this research, and I think it was basically just on Hispanic believers. Uh-huh. And so they looked into like what churches they were going to and who was the population of these churches. And it's such an interesting study because it found that most of the Hispanic believers in America are like new to America. So only 9% of the congregations even existed before the 1950s, and most of them, like over 50% of them, have been established since 2000. So it's there's this huge influx of Christian believers into the United States, but they're all newly Hispanic, like arriving to America. Like these are like the people that it seems to me like if you find like white evangelicals, these aren't the people they want like represent. And so like they're like, wait a second.
Okay. But considering sort of the trend away from church in this country and from belief, you would think
that's where this whole dissonance happens because like, look, these people that are coming into the country, newly coming to America, are bringing their like sincere evangelical beliefs with them. Yeah. And what's interesting too about this study is that a huge portion of this congregation is young. It's like 30%, over 30% that's under the age of 30. What? And that's like what we're losing, people who are already in America, who are Christian believers, they're losing the young people.
Yeah, they're losing, we're gaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're
gaining. Yeah. They're losing.
No, they should love immigration.
That's what I'm saying. That's where you get this weird, like, you're like, okay, you guys, these people are coming in, but they're bringing with them like strong-held religious beliefs, and with those strong-held religious beliefs, some of the same prejudice that these people like. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think it's so interesting. And then you've also, on top of this all, got this like weird. I can imagine it causing, this mind scramble with people because most of the congregations are also preaching in Spanish. And you know, that so many like Christian Americans are like, if you come to America, you got to speak English, you know?
Yeah.
And they're actually like preaching in Spanish, I think. And it's like, you would understand why they would do that. They're wanting to bring something from their country that's familiar and that like feels like home to them. And so a lot of that is their religion. And so they're starting these congregations that aren't based on white, like previously built white churches. So it's not like it's like a white church that they then come to and they're like, okay, well, we'll make a special Spanish speaking version for you or whatever. It's like they're starting their own. It's like part of their community. And anyway, I think it's so interesting that like that they're bringing their religion and their culture to America, which is like a lot of people who are against immigration don't want.
Right.
But like that a piece of that is the thing that they're like really wanting America to stand for, you know?
But we want white people to believe.
I know. It's this weird irony and like this juxtaposition that I would just like to see them wrap. I want to see Billy Graham after he got the results of this study. Like, what is he thinking when he's reading it? Yeah. Well, I want to hear them talk to us about it.
Well,
I'll reach out.
We'll have to look for that. Yeah. Request a comment.
I'll send an email.
Request a comment. Well, all right. Well, down in Australia, which I said that so dumb. They've recently thrown a big funeral for dead Cardinal George Pell. Are you familiar with George Pell?
I'm not. But okay. I'm sure he's not great.
No, he was wretched. He was a top Vatican official, but prior to that, he was a cardinal type. He was the top like Catholic official in Australia.
Okay.
And he was accused of molesting some altar boys, right? And also a long list of the standard sort of thing that any sort of like archbishop or anybody is easily accused of, because that's true probably in the Catholic Church, which is shielding and protecting other priests and from accusations of also molesting children.
They got each other's backs.
They do. Well, he was initially convicted of molesting these two kids, served over 400 days in jail, and then ended up being acquitted.
Oh, I have heard about him.
Like their Supreme Court, their High Court, whatever it is, of appeals, exactly what it's called. I'm probably going to get it wrong. But they appealed the case.
Was it kind of because he was old? They were like, he's an old guy. No,
it was, it seems like it was a bit of a legal technicality. And so he was acquitted. And then he was out of there, right? He went back to the Vatican and to never return. I mean, maybe he visited, who knows? But like he was gone. And so he died at age 81 not too long ago.
Oh, okay.
And then we talked about it on the show.
Yeah.
He the government did not throw any kind of like big fancy funeral for him, which I guess is kind of a thing in Australia. If you're like a big official of some kind,
but probably if you've been in prison for molesting children, maybe let's avoid that.
So the public in Australia, regardless of what their high court says, doesn't really. There's a lot of people who really don't like George Pell, and the politicians, of course, knew that, so they didn't throw any kind of like state funeral or anything. Well, there was a funeral in Sydney, and in a big Catholic cathedral, of course, and it was protested.
Well, good. Way to go.
Rightly so.
Yeah. Who was? So I just assume it was the Catholic Church that was throwing the funeral.
Yeah. Just for one of their own. Yeah. You know. And the funeral was attended by some former prime ministers, Tony Abbott and John Howard, if either of those names mean anything to any of you.
I think I have heard of them.
I could make gagging sounds, I guess, if I wanted to. But Abbott eulogized Pell, saying things like, He's the greatest Catholic Australia has ever produced.
What?
And one of our country's greatest sons. George Pell was the greatest man I've ever known.
What?
And I mean,
I'm sorry, but like you molest a child, it nulls all that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like,
but
no.
But the court found a technicality.
No.
Yeah, gross.
That wasn't a technicality in law. That wasn't a technicality in what happened.
Exactly.
Oh, gross.
But it threw it all into question, right? Because they sort of they drew into question, apparently. I don't understand the law, period. But now it's like a foreign country's law. So it's like, what requirements you have for your juries? But it was something to do with the jury and them properly considering him innocent. Like, did they actually consider his innocence?
Like they were
sort of, I think, the gist of it. And so the high court, and I might be getting that a little bit wrong, but like the court was like, they didn't properly consider it. Gross.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I mean, really, I'm glad that they didn't, because really, I would just look at a Catholic bishop or whatever, and I'd be like, he probably did it. That's awful.
It's better to just assume that they're a child molester.
If a child is like, you know what, that guy, he was a little inappropriate with me, give me believe the kid.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, in a park opposite the cathedral, groups of protesters, many from the LGBT community, were holding signs like Pell, burn in hell. I like that.
I like it too. It rhymes.
And we're here just to show solidarity with the victims and the survivors of what's happened through the Catholic Church, but particularly George Pell, said one of the protesters.
Well, good for them.
So I'm glad to hear it. It was peaceful.
Yeah.
There were no clashes. Apparently the police were initially trying to like shut it down, but then they were able to work with the organizers and say, okay, well, if you're on that road over there, fine. And
free speech.
Kind of work it out and everything. So, so that went forward. That did happen.
Interesting.
George Pell is in the ground.
He's dead.
Hallelujah.
He's dead and gone.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'm going to bop us over to New Zealand for my story, since we're, already in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, Oceania.
Yeah, we'll just bop right over.
Yeah, okay.
So, this is about a church that I have never heard of. Maybe if you live in New Zealand, you will have heard of it. It's called the Arise Church.
Arise.
I think that they have like 10,000 parishioner.
10,000.
Yeah, it's
congregants.
Congregants.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Okay.
So they're fairly big church.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, over the past few years, there were all these accusations that like some horrible things were happening in the church. Like there was some sexual abuse that was happening. They were like, one of the interesting things was that they were making their interns pay to be like, for the privilege of serving people, which feels hilarious to me. So it's
people will just find any way to shit on interns.
Right?
Now you have to pay.
You have to pay.
You have to pay to work for free.
And they were like having people sign these non-disclosure agreements and stuff because there was just like some really bad shit happening.
Yeah.
And so there was a reporter from New Zealand who like had some ins on this story, and they started reporting about it. And through that reporting, apparently there was enough pressure put on this church that they were like, maybe we better have an internal investigation done about it.
Okay.
And so they hired this firm, I think it was called Pathfinding, to conduct an independent review. And it's funny because you hear about churches doing this sort of thing. And it's like, I sometimes wonder if they're like, well, we'll have an independent review and it's going to prove that we were great. Guys, it's not going to. It's not,
Right.
like it's so.
There's a reason why people want you to have an independent review.
Yeah. And it's probably not going to be great. So, so they get rid of the the two main people who were like running the church.
Okay.
They decide to resign because they're like, fine, we don't want to be a part of this church anyway, or whatever.
Great.
And the church has a board, and the board is like, okay, well, we'll hire this independent review. And so this woman comes in to do this independent review, and she is like super thorough, and she hires like almost 550 people. She spends she spends weeks, like 5 weeks. It's just like digging in deep.
Yeah.
And
this is expensive.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
And the people from the church are like, and when you come back to us, we're going to be transparent. We're going to publish this review.
Oh no.
So, through this review, she finds like obviously some horrible things that have been going on. So there's like this ongoing targeted sexual harassment and unwanted nudity, and they're like discouraging people to go to the police about it. And there's like racism. This was what they were charged with the racism. Apparently the church leaders included a directive for them to only focus on white children.
Oh no.
How gross is that? So anyway, so basically like they uncovered just like this horrific stuff. And so
of course they did.
Right? So they had a date scheduled when they were supposed to like publish this finding. And the date comes and goes, and the guy who's the reporter was like kind of had some like inside source who gave him the review, and he then published it. And so the people who I told you about who used to lead the church were like really upset that this was gonna be published broadly for everyone.
Right.
So they sued the woman who had written the report. This woman who had been privately hired by this church to investigate it, they sue her. And so like one of the interesting things was that, I know, is like, just don't represent a church, like, or don't offer to do things for churches. It's just going to come back and bite you.
Right.
But so the interesting thing is, she then had in her clause that she had, like, when they'd hired her, that they had said that if there were any legal bills that came up in like doing this investigation, that they would pay for those legal bills. But they hadn't foreseen that like the previous members were going to sue her.
Wow.
So the church now is like refusing to pay these legal bills, which
they had agreed that they would have.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure they didn't think that this was going to happen. Who knows that was probably just something that they hadn't even read in the clause to the agreement.
Oh my God.
So now they're on the line for like $25,000 or something that they're refusing to pay. And it's just like, so it's this big convoluted, like ironic mess of this church who was like trying to be transparent. And then after they realized it was going to be bad, they were like, they just can't get it right. They couldn't get it right. So I think it was really interesting. Like, what do you think that they should have to reimburse those legal fees, even though it was almost like they themselves who caused it? Yes,
yeah,
obviously,
of course
right?
do. They agreed to it.
Obviously.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So funny.
All right. BYU.
Oh, yeah, it's always going to be a good story when it's BYU.
Brigham Young University down in Provo, Utah.
Go Cougars.
Owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Mormons.
Not the Mormons. Not the Mormons.
The Mormons. Yeah, so the... they have recently urged faculty members to even further align their teachings and research with LDS doctrine and tenets.
I'm surprised that they even had to ask that. Were people not aligning?
Oh, they were. They just want more.
More.
They want more
do
of
it harder.
More and more. No, what they're doing now is department chairs and deans are under pressure to revise their criteria for promotion. To better reward faculty whose work supports the teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ.
Oh my gosh. So basically, if you're like a scientist or you're in like, oh my God.
Yeah. And so this isn't just, hey, everybody, like have a prayer the first day of school,
right.
Which they already did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like,
and do the dress codes.
When something comes up that you could work in a church, teaching or whatever, be sure to touch upon it, blah, blah, blah. Oh. Like, no, it's no longer just like some soft touch thing. Or however, not a soft touch.
It's probably
it has become
like
through the years, right?
Skew your findings.
Well, so this is the issue.
Or don't report.
And not surprising, a lot of the faculty is just like, yeah, sure, great.
Because if you work there,
you're already there.
Yeah,
there's a reason why you probably sought out to work at BYU. Yeah. You like the environment. You like that it's super churchy, and everybody's super mo. And there are probably reasons to work at BYU. I remember
I'm sure they get paid well.
In the Italian department, we had a non-Mormon professor. Actually, throughout foreign languages, they're able to attract these professors.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because they can teach at a level that they just can't at other universities.
All these people coming back from missions who, I can imagine it's like kind of a center for that.
Yeah. And so we had this great professor. She was awesome. But it was always kind of like, but you have to deal with all of this. Wow. Yeah. You must be really into teaching Italian. You must really like being able to speak to your students in Italian. Yeah. That's amazing. Anyway, so most of them were just kind of let's do it. But some criticism is starting to come from some circles. The faculty there probably isn't, raising their voice a little too much. So this is from outside. This is a BYU alumnus, Michael Austin, who's executive vice president for academic affairs at the University of Evansville, which is a Methodist school in Indiana. He sort of reviewed a copy of this speech that was really laying it out for everybody. And he kind of points out some things just from an academic perspective that are problematic. He said, my friends on hiring committees at BYU and BYU Idaho say that the candidates they submit are rejected and they don't know why, right? Adjuncts are fired without enough time to find someone to cover for them. There's no feedback from the church's ecclesiastical clearance office, which we've talked about on the show.
Okay.
It's sort of a Stasi-like organization that they've introduced into the BYU realm. Professors used to just go to their bishop or reverend or whatever, because to go to some ecclesiastical leader that they were affiliated with and just get a thing signed.
Yeah.
And then they would turn it back in and it was like, oh, I've been ecclesiastically endorsed. I'm in good standing, basically, right, with the church. That's not good enough anymore. They actually investigate.
Oh.
Now, they look into your how deeply they look into your past, but they look into what you're teaching in class. Is it aligning properly? What kind of complaints and comments are coming from students about you? And then they decide whether they're going to renew contracts and whatnot through that kind of process.
So if anybody was like, I'll go teach at BYU because I can make a difference and I can have this inside, I could be a safe space for kids or something.
Oh, no, they don't want any safe spaces. No, that's totally not what they're up to. So, and this ecclesiastical clearance office, as it's called, is being kind of mum. They're being a little tight-lipped about some of this stuff. Anyway, but as a result, departments settle on second and third choices, he's saying, which means an inevitable drop in the quality of candidates that are passing through the hiring process, which means they're going to slowly see an erosion of the academic quality, period.
Which is it's going to come around and bite them in the ass because
they don't care. They're turning out Mormons. That's their main big goal.
I feel or at least I used to get this from people I knew in Salt Lake who would be like, but BYU's a really good school and you'll get a really good education there. And it's like, okay, well, it looks like, they actually were a good school.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think in certain programs, it's, like business, right? this isn't going to affect
that's
your
true.
management
That's
classes,
true. No.
right? Like it's just
and that's kind of what they're known for anyway, I guess.
That's like their big stuff, the law. They're going to teach, they already teach some crazy conservative version of the law anyway, right? Like, and whoever out there listening right now who's been through their law school, just, we get it. Don't feel like you need to defend them. But and I know it is a ranked school. Like it is, a lot of their programs are,
and I guess
high quality.
Those programs will still be high quality. It's just going to be like science and the arts. And
there are going to be programs
that
have a real hard time with this. But he says there is virtually no chance that, say, a research article in favor of the family proclamation is going to pass peer review. And so, like, how much do they need to be aligned and how far are they going to go?
Right.
Like, they're really, like, has the potential to really affect academic freedom in the sense of, like, he says, if faculty aren't free to come to any conclusion, right? Any scholarship that comes out of BYU relating to the church's positions on an issue has to be dismissed as biased.
Absolutely. I mean, clearly, they're telling them to be biased.
Yeah.
They're outright saying.
Yeah. So that's happening. That's happening down at BYU.
It's no surprise. And in fact, I'm a little surprised that it wasn't already like that, honestly.
I think sometimes we make bigger assumptions about places like BYU than are necessarily true.
But now we get to.
But now, now they're no longer assumptions.
See? Now we can just be
now
right.
Now we just get to feel very superior.
See, it works out for us. Sorry to the students and to the faculty, but for us, it's great.
Like I know people who went to BYU, and you're right. Like they're like you can get a good education there.
Yeah,
right.
I've heard good things about it as a school.
You're surrounded by a very dedicated student body.
Yeah.
Right. That was the thing that I did like when I was a student there. So people were pretty serious about their studies.
Yeah, because there's nothing else to do, right?
Yeah,
you might as well just study.
But that does change the experience, right?
I'm sure.
I also felt like in some of the classes, the students weren't very terribly prepared.
Well, also they're not going to have this
that was a
wide
different critique.
Range.
That's more
of
a critique of Utah public schools.
Yeah,
than it
probably.
Is
well, and they're not going to be great critical thinkers, probably because they haven't been taught.
They have blind spots in their critical thinking, for
sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, should we move on to my funny last story?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's a fun one because it's about cake.
Oh, I love cake.
How like if you went back to like 20 years ago, and I was like, guess what's going to be like a big news story frequently? Cake. And bakers. You'd be like, no, it's not. How often do we have like big news about bakers?
I mean, if you had told me that, I would have been like, the future is going to be amazing.
I know. And it's not at all the future we want. Cake? No, because it's just about stupid bakers who are prejudiced.
Who knew that so many bakers
were
just that homophobic?
Right? Yeah.
Bakers.
Guess what? We get to do it again. And I'm going to tell you about it.
All right.
Okay. So you remember that guy from Colorado who had the Supreme Court case about, he didn't want to bake the cake for the gay couple.
Uh-huh.
He's in the news again.
Oh, of course he is.
This time he did not. So last time he had won like a partial appeal from the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. So it just happened again that he came back to the Colorado Court of Appeals because he had refused, or actually, I'm not sure if he refused. I guess he did end up officially refusing to make a cake for this woman who was having a birthday cake celebration for her gender transition. So it was going to be a pink cake with blue frosting. And at first he had accepted this commission to make this blue cake with pink frosting because like,
why not?
It's literally just a cake.
Right.
And there's nothing on it that says anything. It's just that. But after he found out that the person was going to celebrate their gender transition with this cake, he was like, no way, I'm going to make that cake for you.
So now it literally is about the person, not the issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's choice. He crossed a line
He
there.
crossed a line, which is kind of delightful. So the court did conclude, they said, we conclude that creating a pink cake with blue frosting is not inherently expressive of any message or symbolism. It provides to an observer would not be attributed to the baker. So it's like, you're not going to think like, oh my God, that baker just baked a pink cake with blue frosting.
Celebration cake.
Exactly. Like you are so not going to think that. But
I mean, it's not even a rainbow.
It's not even a rainbow.
I mean, I could almost be like, yeah, that's a gay cake. But
well, now we have attributed rainbows. That is true.
But also, not every rainbow is gay.
No.
And Christians resent that.
I know, which is kind of amazing.
Resent the whole gay rainbow
it's
thing.
It's so amazing to me.
And so...
So the funniest part about this story is that, so this woman, her last name is Scardina. She's an attorney, and she's the one who had transitioned from male to female. And she attempted to order this pink cake with blue frosting the same day in 2017 that the Supreme Court announced that it would hear Philip's appeal in the wedding cake case. She was like, let's test this out. I'm going to order a cake from him and see if he'll make this cake for me. Yeah. So she said she testified during the trial that she had wanted to challenge the veracity of his statements that he would serve the LGBTQ customers.
Yeah.
And he kind of came, like, it's like he fell right into her trap, which I think is this beautiful thing. And now, so I was thinking as I read this story, I was like, oh, I thought it would be fun for you and I to just kind of like brainstorm like what cakes we could ask this man to make that would just kind of totally horrify him and go against, but that he would have to make. So like I was wondering, like, could there be like some like sex outside of marriage cake that, like, what could represent that? And we'd be like, we'd order this cake and then later on we'd be like, oh, I forgot to tell you, this is a sex outside of marriage cake. Yeah. I know it doesn't look like it because it's just like a white cake with, I don't know what color filling.
Well, but, I mean, the thing is, just go in and order a cake. Yeah. Any old cake and be like, oh yeah. Like, I don't really believe in God anymore. And just see, like... Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, like, because
it's really... He didn't see the fact that it was pink on the inside, blue on the outside, right? Like that there was like this trans thing there. Like he didn't get that, right? No. He literally was like, okay, pink cake,
I'll make this cake for you. Of course I'll make this cake for you.
And so so it is literally just about the person at that point. So you don't have to like get a cake that has any symbolism. No. There's nothing about the cake. You don't have to get like some penis-shaped cake. That's not what he does. Mm-mm. And I don't think anybody would force him to make that cake. No, right?
And I just feel like everybody not that I want to support his business at all and buy cakes from him, but I just want him to know that like his cake is being eaten in like celebration of, like I'm outing myself as an atheist and I'm going to eat his cake, you know? Yes, I don't want to support his business, but like, I just want him to know that like that he's making cakes for these events and there's nothing he can do about it.
It would be even like really amazing just to be like, like I know that you're Christian, so I'm not going to ask you to write a message on this cake because it would be about like atheism and there being no God and me celebrating that and blah, 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 blah. I'll do that myself. So just leave a space. Yeah. Be really communicative and like try to like find common ground and that you're being considerate of him and his horrible Christian beliefs.
And then send him a picture afterwards. Like, I thought you might want to post this on your website. Like, this is what we chose to do with your cake,
Oh, golly gee.
Just amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, if you can think of anything out there, dear listener, that you would suggest asking this baker to make a cake that's perfectly fine. Send us your suggestions. Our email address is podcast@thankgodimatheist.com. Of course, we'd love to hear from you from any other topic as well. Our telephone number is 424-666-8442. Leave us a voicemail. We'd love to hear your voice. More show coming up.
Yay.
So Kate.
Yeah?
I have a little clip of audio that I want to play for you.
Okay, I'm excited.
From Jonathan Shelley. He might fit into the hate preacher category, or at least hateful preacher.
Okay, I'm excited.
He has some things to say about men and women and their roles as husband and wife.
Okay, I'm like girding my loins. I'm ready.
And it's a little brutal. Let's have a listen.
Let's do it.
I heard an independent fundamental Baptist preacher. He's like, it's not right for me to just tell my wife when we're going to have kids. I need to ask her permission or ask when it's okay to start having kids. And I'm like thinking are you a man? Are you a Baptist? You're a fundamental Baptist preacher and you're going to ask your wife if it's okay to have children? I'm like, what planet am I living on? How effeminate is that to let your wife tell you when she's going to have kids or not? I mean, that's feminism. You know which buttons I ask my wife it's okay to press? None. Because she doesn't tell me what to do. That's a weird relationship, and it's sad that fundamental Baptist preachers are letting their wives tell them what to do.
Letting their wives tell them what to do? Because they're not the ones having kids.
Yeah.
The cluelessness of his oh my God, misogyny in that is unbelievable. The thought that it wouldn't be a discussion anyway.
No, I know.
That it's just I'm going to impregnate her. My sperm is ready.
She has no choice.
Yeah, seriously.
That is really sick. Yeah, I know. I've been stumbling upon some really nasty right-wing shit about these super, super subservient roles for women that are honestly, it's coming back, and I think it's even probably more conservative than it actually was in the 1950s whenever they are hearkening back to as the
ownership, that he thinks he has over his wife's body, and that it's that there wouldn't even be a question to any of it, that he just gets to decide. It's not this dual decision. Yeah. It's clearly his decision.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I know it was bad back when, right? Yeah. Of course it was bad. Yeah. Right. There's a cruelty to it now. Yeah. There's a conscious cruelty.
Because you've seen another way. You know it's possible. Yeah. You know it can exist.
Yeah. And they just cannot respect women. They can't respect their wives. They think that I saw one thing that was women are happier, right, in these relationships, was what somebody was asserting. Whoa. And it was just I don't think that's true.
That they even think women deserve happiness. I'm guessing if you drilled down to it. No, seriously, I'm guessing if you drilled down to it, they'd be like, well, what would... No, she doesn't deserve happiness. You know, I get to decide that for her.
Yeah. But this is Christian Taliban shit. This is
absolutely.
This is, I mean, they're not quite to the point of burqas yet, but
as soon as they figure out a way that it benefits them, then they will.
At the end of the day, if the women in these relationships are denied so much of their humanity, they might as well just be in burqas.
Might as well.
I mean, at least then we know who we're dealing with.
Exactly. At least you would then have this outer display of what was going on behind closed doors, Now you think, oh, that person looks normal if you see them. Not that people who wear burqas are not normal people, but there's, yes, you get this outer display of their religion, and oh God, the danger of that. And
I know. It's really, really
horrid.
Really awful shit. It's out there, everybody. Sorry to bring you all down.
You guys always do with these clips, right?
It's what we do.
Are horrid.
We always play something horrible in the middle of the show, and it's just another human being saying something wretched.
Something terrible.
All right. Well, as is typical, when Dan's away, we're gonna skip emails and voicemail. Yeah. And we'll save thanking new patrons and supporters of the show until next week. And so with that, let's just slide right into our discussion.
Let's slide into some more horrid stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we set ourselves up for like horrid control of people's bodies, and let's just continue with the horrid control of people's bodies narrative.
Yeah. Okay. So this last week here in Utah, our Governor Cox, he's one of the most bizarre.
He is a confusing conundrum of a person.
I cannot wrap my head around.
I can't either.
What's going on with this guy? What does he stand for?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I know. Because in one breath, he'll come out and say really positive and supportive things about the LGBTQ
community
plus community.
Yeah.
And then in the next breath, he's signing a law like he did this last week, which is like we said at the top of the beginning of the show. It's a new law here in Utah that would ban gender-affirming healthcare for transgender youth.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but like, is this the first one that's passed?
This year.
I
saw that same headline.
Okay, because I was confused by that. I was like,
no,
I swear
it has happened in other states.
Okay.
But this was the first one.
This is like starting the year off strong sort of thing.
Yeah. But thank God we weren't the first.
Although
it wouldn't really matter.
We're just following the trend at this point, right?
And it's people who, because the key here to understanding what it is that we're talking about is healthcare.
Healthcare.
This is healthcare for people who are ready to transition or not, like the blockers, the hormone blockers.
But it's so important for kids.
It's really important to block.
Yeah.
And to get that started when the timing is right.
Yeah, especially
and
I think
when the doctors involved
yes.
are saying it's right.
And
right? This is not okay, because let's get to what Cox ends up saying.
All right.
He said in a statement that his decision was based on his belief that it was prudent to pause, quote, these permanent and life-altering treatments for new patients until more and better research can help determine the long-term consequences. So kind of on the surface, it sounds reasonable.
It's such bullshit.
But how much research will be enough?
Well,
that's my question. Well, there will never be enough research.
It will never be because they're not listening.
Yeah.
They're not listening.
They're not listening.
When every single physicians,
I
don't even remember the names of them all, but associations are coming out saying every single group is like, this is necessary. This will prevent suicide. This is for these kids' mental health. Yeah. This could literally save their lives.
Exactly. He continues. Let's get through his.
Okay.
While we understand our words will be of little comfort for those who disagree with us, we sincerely hope that we can treat our transgender families with more love and respect as we work to better understand the science and consequences behind these procedures.
No.
Again, it's already out there, right?
You're refusing to look at it.
Exactly. And so once again, how much are you going to require?
And what is
that line? I want to know. You're saying that there's a line at which you will understand. What is that? And
who is it coming from?
Yeah.
Because are you the one who's picking the people that you're listening to? But you're
more likely.
But you're ignoring this vast majority of scientists and doctors who are saying, no. Yeah. We know this.
Yeah.
We've looked at this. We've been studying this.
Exactly.
Or is it actually we have to see the kids now who went through this, and then we have to interview them when they're 55, and then we'll know. So in 40, in 40 years, we'll have some results for you.
Right. I have a feeling that's probably more along the lines of what they're thinking.
I'm guessing it is. But what other studies could you do when you're saying long-term effects? Yeah. There is no way to prove long-term effects.
Honestly, it's words designed to sound reasonable. They are against this.
Yeah, and they're not
just
listening.
They're trying. It's the whole Utah nice thing. They're trying to come off as nice. Oh, we're so concerned.
We care about you.
Yeah,
we're doing this because we care.
Yeah, if you cared, you wouldn't have done anything.
Well, this is the whole
because
thing.
it was already happening, right? This care was already being provided. Here's what the ACLU of Utah had to say. quote, by cutting off medical treatment supported by every major medical association in the United States, the bill compromises the health and well-being of adolescents with gender dysphoria.
Yep.
It ties the hands of doctors and parents by restricting access to the only evidence-based treatment available for this serious medical condition and impedes their ability to fulfill their professional obligations. Yes.
Yeah, legislators love. I mean, it seems like this is like the meat of what they want. They want to take your bodily autonomy and say they know.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what? I'm a legislator and I don't know anything about this, but it seems like probably you don't want to do that.
Yeah. I'm a realtor.
Yes.
Or I'm a developer.
Right.
Or I'm an insurance salesman.
Or I'm a lawyer.
Or I'm a lawyer.
Whatever.
Yeah,
It's
because those are the classic careers that are up in the legislature.
Absolutely.
There is, however, a family doctor who was the sponsor, of course. Of course, they picked some family
gross
stupid doctor.
Gross.
Like, because they wanted to give it some like legitimacy. Right? And
he's probably like the one doctor that in the state that's like
I'm sure there's plenty of doctors in this state that are like blah, blah, blah. But he's nowhere near this kind of medicine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He said that government oversight is necessary for vital healthcare policy related to gender and youth, whatever. It's just once again, Republicans being all for government intervention.
Yes.
When it's
something
their thing, even though they are supposedly the party of small government. Yeah. Right. Like, it is just so ridiculous. They love to reach into our lives. And
when it's something like this, that they love when it's like the most intimate thing that possible. Yeah. That's when they want in there. Yeah. That's when they want control.
It's really, really fucked up. And I just feel terrible.
Your heart breaks
for these kids. They deserve better. And these are some lucky kids. Yeah. They were lucky. Growing up in a time with parents
that are supportive, doctors that are supportive.
It's remarkable. Yeah. It's truly remarkable. And I know it's not, unfortunately, it's probably not the standard for most trans youth out there. But these kids are getting it. Yeah. And it's really sick that just this bunch of realtors and insurance salesmen they know better. It up.
Yeah. 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 And also they're going to cause really future harm for these kids because, okay, so they turn 18 and then they're okay with it. Well, now the care that they're going to need if they make it to 18, feeling having been in this body that felt so wrong to them and then continues to feel extra wrong. And then they're going to need these surgeries to reverse things that happened in in puberty that they wouldn't have needed otherwise, So it's like you're kind of making it more dangerous for them in the future. So
no, I know it's really
hard.
Really sick and difficult.
I know.
And just when I thought that Spencer Cox was better.
Me too. There's been things about him where I was like, well, at least, there are good things about him. Nope. He's kind of just dug a hole for me. I will never like
I'm
him.
kind of done with
I will
Spencer
never.
Cox.
This is like, that seals the deal.
They're in the Republicans they've drifted into this, like they love to accuse the right, or I'm sorry, the left of identity politics and whatnot. Right. But they are waving their flag high and proud about what they think is the right way to live.
For
and it is
everyone.
Small and it is limited and it's really disgusting
I agree.
that they have so much power in this state. And it's not ending anytime soon.
No, it's not.
So, well, all right. Hey everybody. How you feeling?
Did that lift you up? You feel good
I
now?
hope you have a really wonderful day now that you've listened to Thank God I'm Atheist. Yeah, if you'd like to, well, first off, thank you, Kate.
Oh, my pleasure.
Love having you here.
Well, I'm always happy to see you, Frank.
Oh, I know.
I love you.
I love you too. But if you'd like to join in the conversation at home, please do send us an email, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com, or a voicemail. 424-666-8442 is the phone number. Leave us a voicemail. We'd love to play it on the show. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so. Go to our website, thankgodimatheist.com, and click on the support tab. There's two options. You can do PayPal, you can do Patreon. It's over on the right. Looks like an ad for something, but it's for real. And if you'd like to join one of our members-only lounges, please do so. You only have to be a member of the lounge. That's what it's talking about. So go and join it. thankgodimatheist.com/members-only is the way to find them. There's one on Discord, one on Facebook, whichever one you prefer, or both. And big thanks to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music, and to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music. Thanks so much for listening. We sure do appreciate it. And Dan will be back next week. Thanks so much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.